Greetings from Costa Rica and welcome to this special Sunday broadcast here on Costa Rica Matt. Last Friday, I was enjoying holidays with my family and I wasn't able to do my regular broadcast. But today is a very important episode because I am giving my 2026 Costa Rica real estate forecast. Today, we're going to look first and foremost back at what I said at the end of 2024. Looking towards 2025, we'll compare that prediction to reality and how things have actually panned out. We'll look at data from 2025 and how the year has gone in terms of single-family home sales, luxury home sales, condos, and lots. And finally, I will make my predictions for what the market will look like in 2026 here. Along the way, I will also give an update on my most important real estate deal ever, a project that's very near and dear to my heart involving 185 acres of land that will be permanently conserved. And I'll also mention my current favorite listing that I think everybody should be considering, especially as we go into 2026. As always, if you are interested in contacting me, be sure to get out your phone and you can scan the QR code right over here. Right over here. That will bring up my contact card. Of course, I am a Guanacaste real estate broker. I give level-headed advice. I have over 500 videos here on my channel discussing the market, all aspects of moving to Costa Rica, taxes, residency, etc. And as a realtor, I serve the areas that extend from Playa Potrero down through Flamingo, Playa Grande, Tamarindo, Langosta, Avellanas Negra, and Playa Junquial, where I'm sitting in my office today. Also, if you are looking for a complete video compendium of my most important real estate videos with the basics of the process of purchasing real estate here and more, do be sure to visit CostaRicaMatt.com, where you'll see a giant blue V-Book button. Smash that button and you can quickly get my free V-Book, which has 20 plus video chapters with some of the most basic, important information about Costa Rica real estate. And finally, if you're out there watching live today, don't hesitate to put questions, comments, or concerns in the chat. You're also more than welcome to add comments later, and I'm more than happy to answer those here on the channel. Without further ado, let's first take a look back at my 2025 predictions, broadcast in late 2024. First of all, I'll go to a video clip so that you can see that I'm not just making up sort of what I was saying at that point. And we'll get to revisit the past here for a quick summary as to what I was saying back then. However, you also have the COVID effect wearing off, and you've seen now that the inventory that's being created in the places that foreigners want to move, I think is going to far outstrip that gross demand that will be a relatively stable amount to 2024. Now, obviously, if in February we get a major stock market crash in the United States, if we have another type of black swan event where all of a sudden either oil prices shoot through the roof, the US government shuts down for some reason and treasury debt becomes a problem, X, Y, or Z event rattles the international economy, yes, you would immediately see a dramatic pause and stagnation in the Costa Rica real estate market, and anybody looking to sell out of the market would definitely be in, they would definitely have an issue. So we'll go ahead and pause that now. So in general, a larger summary of what I was saying back then is that coming out of the pandemic and the post-pandemic boom that characterized 21, 22, and 23, I saw supply creation outstripping the demand that was going to be represented here in Guanacaste and Costa Rica, and also that sellers and developers would resist lowering prices. The reason I said that latter thing was that obviously this being a cash market for foreigners, you rarely see everything or prices dramatically change as fast as you would in a completely debt-based market. Importantly, I noted that the supply creation that I was talking about outstripping demand would come from both the new developments that had gotten started in response to that post-pandemic rush and the churn of folks, many of who had purchased property quickly following the pandemic, and many of whom would decide to resell because for one reason or another, they had found that Costa Rica was not really right for them. Well, it's funny that I mentioned a government shutdown specifically. That did turn out to be true. It was one of many factors that may have reduced demand. If anything, I would say that I was inaccurate in predicting that demand from 2024 to 2025 would be relatively stable. You did actually see a fairly steep drop in that demand from foreigners year over year. One of the data sources that we have available to us as Costa Rica's largest real estate network at Coldwell Banker is a report generated by the activity of 14 different franchises in the country. And yes, we saw a drop in demand with a negative 15% drop, or a 15% drop in year over year sales of single family homes below the luxury threshold, that's below $1 million. We saw a substantial drop in the volume of luxury homes sold across that network, and significant drops of 20 and 22% in condos and lots. So yes, there was less demand in 2025 than 2024. And one of the things I wanted to discuss was that really this was probably in large part a result of the fact that 2024 was still riding some of the energy from that post-pandemic push. Lots of people in 22, 3, and 4 were rushing to move abroad because of the stress of 2020 and 2021. And we were still really in conditions that were above the normal level of activity in 2024, whereas now in 2025, you certainly saw things return to what felt like a pre-pandemic normal. A lot of people noticed, for example, in our coastline, the low season for tourism felt more like that genuine low season with very low activity, whereas in 22, 3, and 4, it felt like tourism kept up year round. Speaking of those tourism numbers, just to bring up another quick, interesting bit of information, the Costa Rica Instituto de Turismo publishes data every year to give us an idea of what the tourism market is doing. And if you look at 2025 versus previous years, especially comparing it to this purple line being 2019 and a pre-pandemic year, we are finally back at international tourism arrivals that were comparable to 2019. And if you look at the tourists coming in by air, who really represent those, largely US, Canadian tourists, and to a much smaller extent, Europeans, we are now up above the numbers shown in 24, 3, and 2, and well above the data from 2019 as well. So this year you have seen a recuperation in the tourism market. And as we go into 2026, I'm definitely seeing that on the ground. So the question becomes, what will happen as we go into 2026, and what do I see happening in the market? First, before I get to that, I would love to quickly update you on my most important real estate project. And in 2024, I had announced that my watershed protection organization, the nonprofit that I directed for 7 years from 2011 until 2017, the nonprofit called Asociación Nandamojo, on which I sit of the board of directors, was able to acquire a 185-acre parcel of land in our watershed. I'll bring it up here in the municipal system to see what we're looking at. Here is this farm at the absolute headwaters of our watershed. We have now raised enough money to make the down payment on this farm. We have also started making monthly payments towards our reverse mortgage. And here we'll get a quick look at what the land actually looks like when you're looking up at this forest. If you are interested in land conservation and helping me protect this land, we're going to be taking up all kinds of student groups to this park that's been created. We need your support for signage, for maintenance of the trails. We need support for all kinds of things that we want to do in this land now that we have it. Contact me using this QR code to discuss how you can donate, either using a 501c3 U.S. nonprofit as a fiduciary agent, or how you can donate directly to the Nandamojo Association that is now protecting this land. It's taken a ton of work so far to get people lined up, and I am incredibly grateful to the people who are contributing towards our monthly payments of $1,000 to purchase this land and permanently protect it. And if you're out there and interested in helping us go further with this project, do be sure to reach out, and I can give you more information on the different ways that you can donate. So that was a quick aside there before getting to what I actually think is going to happen in 2026 in Costa Rica real estate. One of the key things that I always look at in terms of the market here are the emotional drivers that are pushing people to look at moving abroad. And at the end of 2024, looking towards 2025, I really didn't think that things were that tense, or really that there wasn't as strong of an emotional driver as you had seen at the end of the pandemic. And really, I can say that that has absolutely been the case over the last year. Nothing matched the kind of driving force that people had due to the lockdown. Not the first year of the Trump presidency or anything was really pushing people. However, I have to say that throughout the year, in discussing the prospect of moving abroad with buyers from the US or Canada or other countries, that increasingly I'm seeing signs of those stressful emotions driving people to consider a relocation. And first and foremost, I do feel that in 2026, those stress factors are going to drive solid demand for Costa Rica real estate. If you look at the consensus among economists looking towards the year coming up, not many are predicting a gigantic crash. Many see sort of GDP growth in the mid 2 to 3% range. You do see a lot of warning signals out there with increased household debt. You've got credit card delinquencies and other things going up. However, to me, what's going to happen in 2026 is that people are going to continue to feel that stress, the emotion that they don't feel completely at home where they live, and that we're going to see solid demand, especially at the luxury level. Now, in part, that's because the luxury level, though, that top 10% of US households currently owns a greater share of the national wealth than they ever have in history. Recent GDP growth has largely benefited asset owners, and it's been driven by increases in those asset prices. And you have seen that the middle and lower levels definitely have not been benefiting as much from that economic growth. So you've got an increasingly affluent upper class, and those people are the ones who are definitely considering a move abroad. And recently you have seen, it's easy for me to predict this solid demand in the luxury market for 2026 because it's December 28th, 2025, and we're already seeing solid demand in that luxury sector. Up north of us in Las Catalinas, Playa Potrero, Tamarindo, you've seen a number of properties go under contract. Really, you've seen that those luxury buyers are currently putting things under contract. Now, of course, what if the US economy crashes? Could this, are we sitting on the cusp of some sort of 2008, 9, and 10 again? One of the biggest reasons that I think if the economy crashes, it will not be as bad for Costa Rica real estate in the coming year is that really, if you look back at 2008 and what was driving people to Costa Rica at that time, it was entirely different motives than what you see today. Back then, a lot of people were looking at Guanacaste and Costa Rica as either a place where they could make easy profit because the market was exploding. You had a lot of very cheap land for sale. It really seemed like anybody could purchase something and flip it to the next buyer because that sort of frenzy was happening. In 2026, and really what we've seen over the last couple of years, are that the drivers for people looking here are completely different. And if we're talking in sales lingo, one of the 7 or 8 emotional reasons that people buy things is safety and security, that sense that nothing is at risk. And I've been having more and more discussions with clients for whom safety, security, politics, everything that they feel about those sorts of factors are far more important than the potential for profit. And in 2026, I also think that what you're going to see is that the economic growth that has been favoring that top 10% in the United States is going to match up with the glut of luxury inventory that we have on the market here in Guanacaste. And we're actually going to see a great transaction volume. Now, this will not mean that luxury sellers are going to cash out with an enormous profit. This doesn't mean that prices are going to go up across the board. Instead, I'm saying that I think you'll see good transaction volume because on one hand, we have luxury sellers who have spent 2025, many of them frustrated because buyers have by and large been choosing absolutely new inventory over that existing home. One of the great examples that I like to use as a case study for what's happening in the market is Hacienda Pinilla, a luxury golf course community just to the north of us, where over the past year, you've had some decent transaction volume with 22 single-family homes or condos going under contract and selling, which in that neighborhood is by no means a bad year. But at the same time, you currently have 70 plus homes that are listed for sale, most of them in sort of the $1.5 to $3 million range. And that huge amount of inventory that's been sitting there while new lot sales in Hacienda Pinilla have done pretty well. There are a couple of residential developments offering home sites for sale, and both of them have shown solid sales while you've had this accumulation of existing homes on the market. A lot of that has to do with these luxury buyers' preferences that, yeah, everyone wants to build their own home and have the absolute perfect layout for their family and exactly their dream property. Many of them don't want to choose between the existing options. And so, yes, you've had solid lot sales while you've got an accumulation of Hacienda Pinilla inventory. So I see that definitely as we move into 2026, you've had some places where that accumulation of inventory and the slow results are now starting to wear on those developers and sellers who, yes, have been patient and by and large have not been reducing their prices. Now, going into the next year, I see a lot of those people getting a bit more motivated and price reductions starting to happen. Now, this is something I'm already seeing in my inbox on our shared realtors groups everywhere. It's clear that the prices that people were expecting to get for their real estate here at the end of the post-pandemic boom, those prices had shot through the roof in 21, 2, 3. In 2024, those prices stabilized. And towards the end of 2025, you're really starting to see people realize that they're going to need to reduce their price to come and meet reality. I was looking at a home in Senderos, one of Tamarindo's exclusive developments. In 2022, the brand new concept home was listed above $1.5 million. In 2025, going into 26, they've reduced down to 135. Another example, you had a Mar Vista home listed above $7 million at the absolute peak a few years ago. They had to bring down their price below $4 million. I haven't even kept track as to whether it's sold under $4 million, but just to give an example of that frenzy pricing now coming down to earth. What I do feel is going to happen in 26 is that we're going to match up some of those prices coming down to earth with a lot of people who are fed up, who are frustrated, and who want to move to Costa Rica. Another thing that I check routinely is Costa Rica's perception of security index. Honestly, I was somewhat surprised to see that those numbers have remained fairly steady over 23, 24, and 25. Frankly, there were security concerns in those years that had not previously been issues, but that doesn't seem to have had an enormous impact in what the government is surveying on that. And so I also think that, essentially when we go into 26, that economic growth that is favoring the wealthy in the United States is going to pair well with that luxury inventory that's been building up, and sellers will come down in price. We're going to have motivated buyers who, yes, are going to be very emotional, and at least at the luxury level, the market is going to see some strong transaction volume. Now, at lower levels, sort of those middle or lower price ranges, I could certainly see demand tapering off. It's clear that the median US household is not doing as well as that top 10%. There could be, as we've mentioned, there are a lot of new developments rushing out to meet demand or to offer lower priced inventory. One project near Santa Cruz is offering homes in the 250s. There's another project over near Huacas that has opened its doors, Natarundi. They have a lot of affordable inventory as well. So you are seeing developers provide those options. What remains to be seen for me is whether that median US household is going to have the purchasing power going through 2026 in order to make that $250,000 buy. Now, we still do have 10,000 or rather 11,000 US citizens turning 65 every day in the US. Those baby boomers are one of our largest cohorts, and those baby boomers are increasingly worried, especially about the cost of healthcare and the cost of living in the US. They will be, in my opinion, another strong source of buyers in 2026, as many of them decide that the situation in the US is not what they want. nor what they can really afford sustainably going in to the future. Before I go, I just want to mention my favorite current listing, a property that is now drastically underpriced compared to its replacement cost. This is Casa Palacio. It is an absolutely palatial home. It measures 4,200 square feet. It's an extremely secure home where you've got really, it's set up so that you can lock it and leave it for months at a time. It's located just a couple minutes from Playa Junquial, a quick drive down to the beach. It's in the Tierra Pacifica gated community, right across from the community's gorgeous swimming pool, fitness center, tennis court, etc. This is the foyer at Casa Palacio. There are 2 rooms on the first level. The second level features these beautiful vaulted ceilings that are now priceless and really extremely costly to build. You've got a 2-story space on the second level of this home with a beautiful terrace outside. And then you also have a 3rd level, which is a sunset terrace here with gorgeous views of the surrounding countryside. Casa Palacio is currently listed at $749,000. And as we look towards 2026, it will make a great it'll make a great place for somebody out there. As always, if you want to get in touch with me, be sure to pull out your cell phone, scan my virtual card just over here. Greatly appreciate you joining me. That was my 2026 forecast. Have a great Sunday. Happy New Year and Pura Vida.